The construction of industrial soap factories began during the second half of the 19th century in regions where the cultivation of olives was quite developed, as was the case in Lesvos. Not surprisingly, many soap factories were housed in the same buildings as olive oil presses. Highly acidic oil, which was barely edible or inedible, was used for the production of soap. This oil came from the second or third compression phase of the olives. The basic process for the production of white soap included three main phases. The first one was called pulping. Soap makers poured the oil in a cauldron and then added dilute lye, caustic soda or soda water, equal to the weight of the oil. Then they boiled the mixture at 100 degrees Celsius, stirring it from the bottom upwards. Before reaching 70 degrees Celsius, the oil was neutralized, reaching 0.4 or 0.5 degrees of acidity. The saponification process began from 70 degrees Celsius onwards. In about 5 hours, the mixture turned into a viscous mass, on the surface of which there was a yellowish, milky pulp, the soap. Then the mixture was left to cool for about 10 to 12 hours. The process could have stopped at this point, but the soap produced was of low quality, high causticity, and with many admixtures. This is the way they produced household soap in many villages, often using makeshift boilers. Other producers made household soap using the cold process. In industrial facilities, there were two additional phases. During the purification, they added common salt and heated the mixture for 6 hours, stirring continuously. The soap stayed on the surface, whereas the lye and the glycerin precipitated and was removed through a tap located in the lower part of the cauldron. During the baking phase, workers added lye, equal to half the quantity of oil, and, stirring constantly, heated the mixture until it came to a boil. They repeated this process 2 or 3 times, with 3 to 4 hour intervals in between, during which they left the mixture to cool off, while removing the liquids through the tap in the lower part of the cauldron and adding lye again and again. The completion of the 3 phases usually lasted 2 days and was carried out by a specialized artisan, the baker. Then they fished the soap out using a ladle and put it in a wooden trough. It should be noted that for other types of soap besides the white soap, such as green soap, colored or white Marseille soap, or various types of aromatic soaps, etc., the original mixture did not contain only olive oil, but also other ingredients as well, depending on the type of soap produced. The baker was responsible for the correct proportion of the mixtures used. For the types of soap which required the addition of color or scents, workers put the mass and the suitable admixtures in a revolving mixer known as the tumbling machine. The final mixture, produced either right after the baking or after the tumbling machine stage, was carried by workers to the dryer, which was usually located on the upper floor of the soap factory and had lots of windows which were opened according to the direction of the wind, the humidity levels, etc., in order to facilitate the drying of the soap. They placed the mixture on forms on the wooden floor. These square forms were made of wooden slats placed on grease-proof paper. Another layer of grease-proof paper was placed on top of this. After emptying the mixture into these forms, they flattened and evened out its surfaces and let the mixture dry. Then, other specialized workers, called midday workers as they worked in crews for 2 to 3 hours at noon, took over. First, they used a pair of compasses to mark the full length and width of each square of soap, thus defining a uniform length and width for each bar of soap produced. Then they measured it. Using a red thread, they put one end on each mark made by the compasses and stretched it straight across the soap. Then by lifting it in the middle, they let the thread fall, and this way they marked the point at which the soap would be cut. Using a special blade, 2 workers would then cut the soap into bars according to the marked dimensions. Finally, they stamped an imprint on each bar of soap with wooden seals using a hammer. For the most expensive types of soap, as for instance green soap or Marseille soap, they used a special press to imprint the seal. They also used a variety of ways to store the bars of soap depending on the type. For example, green soap was stored in boxes, whereas white soap was stored in sacks. The bars of soap were placed in the sacks in a way that allowed the sealed sides of the soap to touch one another.